Hi everyone, welcome to Ask the Expert. It's not just came from the gym and I forgot to change. It's because the time for the coach and not BS questions and job interview. Coach, welcome back. It's always lovely to have you.
Oh, Pashua, thank you so much. Nice to see you again. It's been a while and look forward to helping some more folks.
So, Coach, you have a long resume. You are number one in how many channels? You was one of the first person in LinkedIn. You have your own job search TV. Tell us all the places people can find you and how you become an expert.
I was LinkedIn member 7653 of the more than 650 million people on the platform. And you can find me there at linkedin.com/IN/the big game hunter. So that's one place. I have the number one podcast and Apple podcast for job search called No BS Job Search Advice Radio, which is number one in the category. More than 1,600 episodes starting in November 2010. And then that's a top 10 podcast and one of the top 10 YouTube channels that you can access at jobsearchtv.com with thousands of videos, like more than 7,000 at this point, about job search, hiring more effectively, managing and leading, being more effective in the workplace in general. So there's just a lot of material that's available to you. But today,
we need to put music next one. I'm going to ask the guys in editing to make a pause. Dun, dun, dun. Now, question.
Yes, that would be fun. So today we're going to have special material just for you.
Ooh, I feel special. Tell me.
So we're going to talk about a few stupid job search mistakes that people make that really are a form of self-sabotage for you. There's no reason to do this kind of stuff, but people do it way too often, and it proves costly. And thus, you wind up floundering because the people I work with are good at what they do, and some of them are great. But unfortunately, things don't click. They're not connecting with the market for some reason. And these forms of self-sabotage are really amongst many that people engage in that hurt them in their search and cause them to settle for opportunities that are less than what they really could get. So you want me to start going into it?
Yes. You know what? You make me shut up. It's a miracle. Go for it.
Oh, no, not that. So the first mistake I know people make is they start fixating on developing the perfect resume. This resume has to be, it has to be perfect. And they parse every word and they study it and they look at it intently. And they spend weeks on this. Weeks. And folks, you're not a resume writer. You don't know what you're doing. You're an amateur. And that's okay. I don't write resumes for a living, so I want to be clear. I'm not fishing for resume writing business. There's great resume writers, and there are awful resume writers. But that you are doing it is the worst of all possible worlds because, frankly, you wouldn't recognize a great resume if it bit you. I wish it were different, but if one bit you in the butt, you go, ooh, what was that? But it's not really what your strength is. That's number one.
Stick with what you know, not what you don't.
Right. So then, number two, you depend on recruiters almost to the exclusion of any other thing that you might do. And the problem with that is the statistics. Recruiters fill, on average, about 6% of all positions.
Only 6%?
Time out. I quoted the wrong number. I apologize. 22%. It's 22% for recruiters, 6% for job boards, which is the other place you make mistakes. And a lot of recruiters, particularly in the contingency world, use job boards to get candidates. So just combine the two. 30% are filled by recruiters and job boards. Okay. But there's 70% out there that you're not paying attention to. and that's your relationships, your network of people with whom you've worked in the past, who you know personally, that you don't reach out to. And I've heard some great stories that I'll get to in a second, but your network is really where you're going to most likely find the positions, because that's where 70% of them get filled, because employers have social proof of your capability because they got a referral. And the way the statistics work is 70% of the 70% come as a result of introductions to people your network knows who you don't. So it's not that they're the one who's instrumental directly, it's they know someone else who you don't know who becomes instrumental in making this happen. So it's spending so much time on recruiters and not enough time on your network is foolish on your part. It's stupid. I tell you, it's stupid.
I can say it in a couple more languages, but I think we're going to be censored.
Oh, no, not censored. Number 3.
Yes, sir.
You don't recognize when negotiating is going on. You just think it's casual information gathering when they say, so how much are you looking for? How much are you making? And all these sorts of questions related to compensation. Now, in some states and some cities in the United States now, it's no longer legal to ask about current salary. In most of the country, it still is. And the issue for you is every time they're talking about numbers, they're negotiating and you don't recognize it as that. So when they say, oh, you want to be a little flexible, and it's in the first interview, in the first 20 minutes,
they got you.
Right, you don't recognize that as negotiation. They got you if you say yes. The idea is to say, hey, slow down, please. Way too early. I know nothing about the job other than what this document says of the job description. Haven't met the manager, haven't met the colleagues, haven't got the true scope of the position. I don't know if it's worth being flexible yet.
And by the way, in one of your videos in your YouTube channel, and I don't remember where, you says between what is the paper says and what the description of the real job is, ask questions, has nothing to do. So be more inquisitive. Why are you going to be flexible when you don't know what you're really getting into?
Right. Job descriptions are about 80% accurate.
Wow.
That's it. And the reason is the way most job descriptions are created is someone gives notice, the hiring manager calls HR and says, you got that job description we used to hire Susan? Yeah, she just gave notice. We need to hire a replacement. Could you get that out to our vendor list and put it up on the website and do your voodoo? And no one ever updates these things. And you don't know where the 20% is that's inaccurate.
Wow.
It's brutal.
So you says mistake number 3, do not start negotiating until you don't know what.
They're negotiating. You have to recognize they're negotiating, and you need to slow them down a little bit. So the laugh, oh, slow down, Tiger, and just take it a little bit easier on me and say, look, I don't know enough about the position yet. Don't know about who my colleagues would be, haven't met my boss, don't know the real scope of the position. Let me find out more, and then I can really answer that question. In theory, yes, but in practice, I don't know yet. And what you've done is basically say you're not going to be a pushover. And that's really what you need to do on your side to avoid getting in the conveyor belt of their process. Because remember, you're like a salami on a conveyor belt to them.
Oh my God. Coach, only you.
Right. There's a conveyor belt that they got you on, and they're moving you down the conveyor belt. And their process is one to get people for as little as they possibly can, who are square pegs for square holes. That's not your job. Your job is to get the most and the right opportunity for you. And it's way too early if you're negotiating in the first 15, 20 minutes of the HR interview, as most of them are doing. So that's the third point I want to make. I've got a fourth one. I got a couple more.
Okay, let's go.
Number 4, you don't really give maximum effort to your search. It's like a part-time job for you. Very little effort per se. And if you were really to chronicle your effort, you discover how little time you put into it. Like, you may be thinking about it a lot, but in terms of the real doing, you're not doing as much as you think you do. You're applying for jobs. That isn't maximum effort. Max effort is about using your contacts to introduce you to firms rather than you doing all the work. So the next thing I always think of is not putting in max effort. And
it's like online dating. Put your best efforts on makeup and go out there and meet people. It's the same.
I know nothing about online dating. That preceded me. I'm sorry, that's after me. I precede online dating.
Good for you.
I met my wife in grad school, and online dating, no, wasn't necessary for
It's
me.
a jungle. Don't go there.
I have no plans. I'm going to do my political statement. I have no plans at the present time to. Anyway, so two more I've got for you folks. And next one is believing that it's in the bag, like you're getting toward the final round. And you're thinking, oh man, I've been through 6 interviews, 5 interviews, 3 interviews. I got this thing locked up. I'm meeting the grand poobah of the function. This is a lock. It's never a lock. And I always say that because, frankly, when you're interviewing with the grand poobah, you're always competing. You're competing maybe with another person, but you're also competing with the idea that someone better's out there. So if the grand poobah worries about you for some reason, they go back to their subordinate and go, give me someone else. This person is a potential problem. Because from their vantage point, they see 3 possibilities that they're going to interact with you about. Number 1, you've done a great job. Someone's calling them up to praise you. Number 2 is you screwed something up and they're calling to complain about you. And of course, the 3rd is review time. And that one about screwed something up is the big worry for them, because when companies are hiring, competence is one of the things that they look for, but they also look for self-confidence, character, chemistry, maybe a little charisma like Susan has, all of which adds up to they trust you. If they don't trust you, they don't hire you because they're worried about how you can cause a problem. And then the last thing I've got with you, you never rehearse for your interviews. You never practice. You never practice your answers. And I always remind people that when great athletes make it to the professional level, they still practice even though they're the best in the world. And when great entertainers perform, they all rehearse, and these are the best in the world. And job hunters go out on interviews, and the first time the words ever come out of their mouth are at the interview. And they wonder why they don't deliver the lines well. So it leaves them with what I call the holy trinity of regret. The holy trinity of regret? Yes, the holy trinity of regret. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. If I should have practiced, I could have done better. If only you're left with these regrets because you made a critical mistake. All of these are avoidable, and they're not complicated to avoid, and they don't take a lot of time to avoid. But job hunters do this all the time.
As always, Coach, you're so succinct, precise. Can we metrics your brain so most people can get your funnel of wisdom?
Well, there's a possibility next year that that's going to be available commercially. And we're
Who knows about that? We cannot say anything yet.
We haven't said anything about it, but we're talking about the possibility of a brain dump in a refined manner.
Yes, we will, and we're going to tell everyone at the beginning of the year. For now, Coach, it's a pleasure to have you. As always, you are one of the funniest experts because you always make me laugh. Coach, see you next one.
Thank you, Susan.